Mark, did the prosecution overreach in their closing arguments, both in terms of what they were speculating or theorizing and in terms of not modulating the presentation? He was yelling almost the whole time.
Yes. Look, he did the best that he could with the little evidence that he has. And understand they were grossly hindered from the very beginning because Zimmerman, by his own admission, killed the only other eyewitness to this crime, either because he legally feared death or great bodily harm and was justified, or because he cold-bloodedly killed this kid in second-degree murder. Either way, it leaves a prosecution with a gaping hole in their case, one that cannot be overcome by emotion and passion.
Casey, do you agree? Evidence is somebody got something.
Listen, I can definitely defend Trayvon. I believe that he reasonably feared death or great bodily harm. That doesn't then take away from the prosecutor's obligation. We're focused exclusively on whether Zimmerman committed a crime and whether the prosecution can prove it. And legally, they don't have all the elements. You can't force or speculate proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And you just can't do that. That's unlawful.
And so, Casey, is that why we're not hearing about it? Mark, you had a question for Frank. Go right at it.
Yeah, Frank, I've been very eager to find out what the defense team thinks of your media tour every single night being on TV. I'll tell you, if I was representing Zimmerman, I would tell you two things. Number one, your loyalty to your friend is admirable. But number two, I would tell you the same thing 911 told Zimmerman that night. We don't need you to do that.
Frank.
Didn't Trayvon Martin have a right to defend himself too?
Mark, what's your assessment?
Phenomenal job by both Guy and O'Mara. I've got nothing negative to say. Well, I do.
Really? Really?
Not really. I'll tell you this. No, they both did the best they could with what they had. The only thing I would say about O'Mara, and he's right, he said, you know, my colleagues are going to have a problem with me shifting the burden to the defense. He's right. I don't love that at all. Leave it on the state. Ultimately, he made it very clear to the jurors that the burden falls squarely on the state, and they did fall short of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that he didn't act in self-defense. But I'll tell you, I love the way Guy used emotion to bridge the gap between the lack of evidence that their case had.
Crystal, you agree?
Making us pay for slavery today.
He's down there pretending to be white.
You're still carrying the bill for slavery to us.
Hang on, Mark, go ahead.
Why don't you move on?
Mark, go ahead.
Let me address one thing. If we lower the burden of proof to get Zimmerman, because a lot of us feel like he probably did something wrong, but there's just not enough evidence because he killed the one guy who could provide the evidence. If we lower the bar, if we lower from beyond a reasonable doubt down to, well, we really don't like him, so it's more than a hunch and that's good enough, then every future defendant, white, black, Hispanic, whatever, will suffer. The system will suffer, and it will be a miscarriage of justice.
Lonnie, you want to put a little code on that?
Who are put in prison, and it's often non-violent drug offenses.
Hold on.
That's not true. That is not true.
Crystal, hold it. Mark's been quiet and playing fair in the sandbox. Like I asked. Go ahead, Mark. Is that true?
All right. First of all, let me just say this. I'm so glad that we're having this dialogue. Whether, you know, it's because of George Zimmerman that it triggers this discussion, wonderful. But this isn't anything new. I'm in the trenches every day of the criminal justice system, which seems to be a reflection of society. And you've got cops who are influenced by color. You've got cops who are influenced by their prejudices. You've got prosecutors and judges who are judging. I don't think it's any different than society. I'm glad we're having this dialogue. To some extent, what it's about is raising everyone's level of awareness, because all of this stems from ignorance.
Let me say this. This is not the forum to actually second-guess this woman's thoughts, perceptions, and emotions. This is what she perceived,
what are you
regardless of whether or not, excuse me.
Wait. Why are you talking?
Excuse me. But this is about what her perceptions were on that evening. There's been enough finger pointing in this entire episode. She has her particular perceptions. Don West
is in a position. I do live in the same country as you, but as you know, you're a little lighter than me, so you get treated probably a little better.
Really? We look like the same skin color, actually.
Mark, help me out here. I need you to ground this.
Color.
Mark, help me.
Help you. You invited her on the show. Don't blame me.
Take you.
Yeah. Mark, let me ask you this. Your advocacy is your life, but can you imagine getting sequestered for 22 days and signing up for something a high profile as Zimmerman? Can you imagine actually agreeing to do that?
No, and my heart, Drew, goes out. I'm glad you came to me. My heart goes out to them. Right. Justice is not whether you like the verdict or not. It's them doing their job. My wife prefers carrots over cookies. I think it's outrageous, but that's her opinion. These jurors' opinion were different than some people's. That's their right. That's their obligation. They did the best they could. They need to be commended, not scorned.
Miss Ali,
they had sequestered. They let them go and see certain movies. Do you know that one of the movies was The Lone Ranger? Now, what kind of racist movie is that? Kemosabe and Tonto and The Lone Ranger?
It was approved by the court. It was approved by the court.
This is a farce.
Here we go.
First of all,
hold on.
This is a farce. This is a joke.
Hold on. Why is it a joke, Mark?
Thank you, Mark.
Why is it a joke?
Because this is so outrageous. I cannot believe that she believes the words that are spewing from her mouth. It is. I can't believe that you find that it's unacceptable that these jurors who only got a mani and a petty and a bloomin' onion and got to see a damn movie, you're accusing that of being racist. Give me a break.